Yes, it's very true. My mother, she passed away years ago, and my father remarried to this woman. It's a story for another day. But what I'm coming here today is because my stepsister. My father wants me to be a bodyguard for her because apparently she's getting bullied in school. But here's the thing. I don't know anything about her. I don't even know if she's a good person. I don't even know if these bully allegations are true, or maybe she's the bully. And I'm in college right now, 30 minutes away at my own campus, apartment, trying to get my education going. And now I have to deal with someone that's not even my real sister. I don't even know where to start with this mess. I guess I should clarify that I don't hate my stepsister. I don't even know her well enough to have an opinion about her, honestly. But according to my father and his new wife, I'm supposed to be her bodyguard, babysitter, therapist, and social coordinator all at once. And when I said no, suddenly I'm the worst son and brother in the world. So here's the situation. My mother passed away when I was 12. It was just me and my dad after that, and honestly, he was never really there for me. He wasn't outright cruel, but he wasn't present either. He worked late, barely talked to me unless it was about school or chores, and just generally treated me like a responsibility rather than a person. It wasn't long before I learned to be independent because, well, I had to be. I cooked my own meals, handled my own schoolwork, and figured out everything else on my own. Birthdays, barely acknowledged. Emotional support, non-existent. When I got my first job at 16, I was already used to handling things myself because my dad just didn't plan to put in the effort. Okay, fast forward a few years, and my dad meets Laura. They get married last year, and along with her came Emma, my 16-year-old stepsister. I barely know her because I'm in college now and don't really get to spend much time at home. But from what I've been told, she's been through a lot. Laura keeps saying Emma was badly bullied at her school, which led to some kind of emotional breakdown, and she doesn't talk much, doesn't go out, and has trouble making friends. I get it, that sucks for her. I would not wish that on anyone. But somehow this has become my problem. Now, according to Laura, what Emma needs most is a strong, reliable older brother to help her adjust. And guess who volunteered for the job without being asked? Yeah, me. My dad told me very seriously that I needed to step up and help Emma build confidence, that I should escort her to school, make sure nobody messes with her, and introduce her to people, and basically devote a significant chunk of my life to making sure she's okay. I laughed because I thought he was joking, but he wasn't. When I told him that this is not my responsibility, he gets angry. He said that since I'm the oldest, it's my duty to protect her. That I should be grateful for having a family again after all these years, that I should be happy to help her adjust. Well, at that point, Laura chimed in, saying that Emma really needed a supportive brother figure and that I could be such a positive influence on her. At this point, I just told them flat out, I am not her therapist. If Emma needs any sort of help, she should get professional support and not be forced to rely on a stepbrother she barely knows. I told them I didn't want to be responsible for someone else's emotional well-being. I mean, is that too hard to understand? Well, that's when the guilt trip started. My dad said I was being selfish, that I was acting like a stranger instead of family, and Laura looked like she was about to cry and said she thought that I was a good person, but maybe she was wrong. Emma was in her room the whole time, so she didn't hear any of this, but I wouldn't be surprised if they told her later. Yeah, I left before I could say something that I would regret. Now my father's texting me nonstop saying he's disappointed in me. Laura keeps trying the passive-aggressive guilt approach, sending messages like, I just thought you were more caring than this. Wow. And now some of my friends are saying, well, it wouldn't hurt to help a little. I get where they're coming from. They think that it's just a normal sibling dynamic, that maybe I'm just being stubborn and should try to connect with Emma. They don't see the bigger picture, because it's not about whether or not I could help. It's about the fact that I shouldn't have to. Emma's not my responsibility. My dad barely cared about my emotional well-being growing up, and now he suddenly wants me to be a big brother just because it's convenient. He didn't step up for me when I needed support, but now I'm expected to be some heroic role model for a girl I barely know. No, that's not happening. I get that Emma had a tough time at her last school, but how is that my problem? I didn't bully her, I didn't create this situation, yet I'm being pressured into playing Big Brother just because my dad and Laura don't want to deal with it themselves? That's the thing that really makes me mad. They act like this is about family, but let's be real. If my dad actually cared about family, maybe he should have acted like a real parent when I was growing up. I was 12 when I lost my mother. 12. Do you know what my dad did for me emotionally? I'll tell you, nothing. He just assumed that I was fine because I wasn't acting out. I did not even get to go to therapy. I didn't get any heart-to-heart talks. Nothing. I mean, he just assumed I was okay, and I had to deal with it because that's what was expected of me. It's ridiculous. I mean, what would you have done? And now he wants me to do what? Help a girl I barely know because she had a rough school experience when he never helped me with my own grief? That's why I'm angry. I spent years handling things on my own because I didn't have a choice, and now that I finally got my own life together, my dad wants to dump his new family's problem on me. And the worst part, I actually feel guilty. That's the frustrating thing. I know I shouldn't, but I do. I keep thinking, what if my friends are right? What if it would not hurt to try? But then I remember that the only reason I feel guilty in the first place is because I've been conditioned to accept being an afterthought. I've always been expected to be independent, to handle my own problems, to not ask for too much, but suddenly I'm supposed to just drop everything and be the perfect older brother just because they want me to? No, I refuse. Well, they made it clear my feelings did not matter when I was younger, and now their feelings don't matter to me. I don't know, am I actually being a jerk here? Some people are making me feel like I'm overreacting, but I just don't see why this should be my problem. Update number 1. It's been 2 weeks, and honestly nothing has changed. My father and Laura are still guilt-tripping me non-stop. Every time I'm home, there's some passive-aggressive comment about how family looks out for each other, or how Emma just needs a good role model. It's gotten to the point where I can't even sit in the living room without Laura sighing dramatically and muttering something about how sad Emma is, or how she wishes I would just give her a chance. My dad keeps bringing up how hard he worked to provide for me, as if that's somehow justifying dumping this responsibility on me. The irony is that sure, he provided financially, but emotionally, he was never there. He never had heart-to-heart talks with me, never checked in on how I was coping after my mother passed, and never made an effort to bond with me. He made sure I had a roof over my head, but when it came to actually parenting, he just didn't do it. It's that simple. He did nothing. Well, now all of a sudden I'm expected to step up as a big brother and caretaker for a girl that I barely know. I don't know if Emma even knows the full extent of what's happening so far. She hasn't said a word about it, and honestly, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Maybe my dad and Laura have not told her how much they're pushing this onto me. Maybe she actually believes that I don't like her. Either way, she hasn't approached me, and I haven't approached her. Not out of malice, I just genuinely don't have anything to say to her. And honestly, I barely existed in that house anymore. I stay out of it as much as I can. If I'm not at work, I'm at a friend's place or on campus, even though my university is just a 30-minute ride away. I come home late, crash in my room, and leave early. My dad's starting to notice how much I'm avoiding home, and it's only making him more aggressive about trying to force me into the role of a big brother. That's why I've been seriously considering moving out. At first I dismissed the idea. It didn't make sense. My university is nearby, so getting a dorm felt unnecessary and wasteful. Why spend money on rent when I have a free place to stay? That was my mindset before all this, but now it's starting to feel like my only escape. I've been looking at a student accommodation, even though the thought of spending money on rent makes me sick. I worked hard to save my money, and now I might have to drain it just to have peace of mind. The only problem is that moving out means picking up more hours at work. I already work part-time to cover my personal expenses. Food, transportation, books, but rent would eat into my savings fast. If I go through with this, I'll have to increase my hours, which means less free time, less sleep, and probably more stress. And the worst part, I don't think my dad will even care that I'm struggling. I doubt he'll ask me if I'm okay. I doubt he'll offer to help me out, even though he had no problem helping Laura and Emma settle into this house like royalty. Now, if I leave, he'll just see it as proof that I'm the selfish one. The anger I feel over this is so unreal. You know? It's not just about him pushing responsibility onto me. It's about the fact that he acts like I owe him something. Like I should be grateful that he raised me, even though he only did the bare minimum. The way he talks, you would think that he had sacrificed everything for me, when in reality I raised myself. I handled my own grief and I became independent because I had choices of nothing. And now he wants me to be emotionally supportive, a big brother that he never was for me. Anyways, that's what makes me mad the most. I think what makes this even harder is that part of me still feels guilty. Even though I know I'm not in the wrong, even though I know this situation is entirely unfair, the years of being conditioned to expect nothing from my father but still be grateful for what little I get to make it hard to just walk away without feeling like I'm abandoning something. And maybe that's why they're counting on this. Maybe my father and Laura know I feel this way and that's why they keep pushing. Because they think eventually I'll break down and just give in, but I can't. I'm an adult now. I can't let myself be trapped in someone else's expectations for my life. I don't want to spend the next few years tiptoeing around my own house, being forced into a role I never wanted, just because it makes things easier for my dad. I deserve better. It sucks that I even have to make this choice. Moving out means struggling financially, and staying means struggling emotionally. I hate that these are my only two options, but I know deep down that I can't stay here any longer. I can already imagine how my father's going to react. He'll either pretend not to care or he'll lose his mind over it. Laura will probably cry and make herself the victim. Surprise, surprise. And I would not be surprised if Emma is used as an excuse to guilt trip me even more. But I don't care. I'm moving out, I'm setting my boundaries, and if they don't like it, that's their problem, not mine. Update number 2. It's been a month since my last update, and I finally moved out. I managed to find student accommodations that were not ridiculously overpriced, and even though it still means cutting into my savings and working extra hours, it's worth it. But of course, my father and Laura did not let me leave peacefully. Oh no, the day I started packing my things, they made a huge scene. It was like they've been waiting for this moment just to turn it into another guilt trip. My dad went on and on about how I was abandoning my family, how he sacrificed so much for me, how I was being selfish by refusing to be there for Emma. Laura was crying, saying she thought that we could have been a family, that I did not even give them a chance. And then, surprisingly, Emma stepped in too. She actually apologized to me. She told me she was sorry that things had gotten this bad and that it was her fault for causing problems between me and my dad, and that she never wanted me to feel like I had to take care of her. She said that she knew that she was a burden, that she knew she was damaged, and that she had wished things had been different. At that moment, I didn't even know what to say. I just kind of stood there, staring at her while my dad and Laura immediately latched onto her words. Yeah. Suddenly, I wasn't just the bad son who refused to help his stepsister. I was now the evil villain who made a traumatized girl feel guilty enough to apologize. My dad went off saying, "Look at what you've done. She's blaming herself because of you." Laura was sobbing, saying Emma had been through enough and I was making it worse, and they turned on me so fast, using Emma's apology as ammunition to make me feel even more like the bad guy. At the time, I just rolled my eyes, grabbed my stuff, and left. I wasn't about to let them guilt trip me into staying, but looking back, I'm realizing something. Emma was not just apologizing, she was manipulating the situation. I don't want to be that person who assumes the worst about someone, but after thinking it over, I can't ignore it. Emma's words were not just random apologies, they were carefully chosen to fuel my dad and Laura's anger towards me. She made herself sound like a helpless victim, like she was some fragile, broken thing that I was walking away from, and it worked. Her words gave my father and Laura more reasons to attack me, to paint me as, the heartless, ungrateful son who abandoned his poor little traumatized stepsister. The worst part, I almost fell for it. If I had not already been so fed up, if I had not already been set on leaving, I might have actually caved. I barely know Emma, but now that I'm looking back at everything, I realize she's actually very good at using her trauma to get what she wants. She plays the helpless, broken girl when it benefits her, and people fall for it hook, line, and sinker, and I don't doubt that she learned that from Laura. I really didn't want to think badly of Emma. I tried not to let my resentment towards my father and Laura extend to her, because she was never directly part of the problem. But now, I'm so glad I got out of that house. I feel free. I can finally come home without dreading the next guilt trip, the next passive-aggressive comment, the next expectation being shoved onto me. And as for my dad, Laura, and Emma, they can deal with their family drama on their own. I'm done. Update number 3. It's been a week since I moved out, and I wish that I could say things have calmed down, but they haven't. My dad and Laura actually showed up at my dorm unannounced, trying to corner me. I don't even know how they found out where I was staying, but I wouldn't be surprised if they pressured one of my relatives into telling them. They didn't text, they didn't call, they just showed up. And when I didn't let them in, they started making a scene. They were at the front entrance, loudly demanding to see me, saying it was oh so urgent, and that family should be talking things out. Yeah, right. My dad even tried to guilt trip the dorm staff, saying that I was just being overly dramatic and that they needed to teach me respect. Laura was full on crying, acting like a mother who had been cruelly shut out by her ungrateful son. Luckily, I had already spoken to my dorm manager about them, and they were not allowed inside. The staff blocked them from entering and told them they cannot wait around unless I personally agreed to see them. Of course I didn't. After a while, they finally left, but not before making sure everyone around heard about what a terrible son I was. I know, because my dorm manager later told me that my father kept saying things like, "He's my son, I raised him, and this is how he treats me." Since then, the harassment has only gotten worse. They're now blowing up my phone nonstop, and I've been getting endless calls and texts alternating between guilt trips, fake concerns, and outright anger. One moment, my father's texting me stuff like, "We just want to talk, can we not be a family?" The next, it's a full-on accusation about how I abandoned them, how I'm selfish, and how I've let other people poison my mind. Laura's been even worse. Her messages are pure emotional manipulation. Long paragraphs about how she just wanted a family and how she never thought that I could be so cruel. She keeps saying Emma's devastated, but she's not doing well, and that it's my fault for leaving her behind. I've muted both of them, but I still see the messages, and it's straight up exhausting. I have to be a bit more careful now. I'm being extra careful whenever I go out. I would not put it past them to suddenly ambush me somewhere. So thankfully, my father has always been so neglectful of my life that he doesn't even know where I work. That's my biggest advantage. If he knew, I have no doubt that he would show up there too, so I've been extra cautious not to let anything slip. But it sucks that my university is still so close to their house. There's always the possibility of running into them somewhere. At the end of the day, though, I'm an adult now, and I'm enacting my boundaries whether they like it or not. They can harass me all they want, they can cry, yell, throw tantrums, but they're not forcing me back into their mess. They're just going to have to deal with the fact that I'm done. Final update. Update number 4. OP says they're free. It's been 2 months since I moved out, and honestly, I've never felt better. At first, it took some adjusting. Paying rent still stings a little, and working extra hours to make up for it has not been fun. But the peace of mind I have now is absolutely worth it. No more coming home to guilt trips. No more passive-aggressive remarks. No more pressure to be some forced big brother figure. And the best part, they finally stopped bothering me. A few weeks after my last update, the one where they showed up at my dorm unannounced and caused a scene, the calls and texts just stopped. At first I thought maybe they had just given up, but oh no, they had their own mess to deal with. Turns out my gut feeling about Emma, I was right. She wasn't just a victim of bully at her last school, she was the bully. Apparently a bunch of old classmates came forward to expose her. Someone from her previous school started sharing screenshots of messages and group chats, and heck, even some voice recordings of her saying some really awful things about other students. She had spread rumors encouraging people to exclude certain classmates, and even laughed about making others cry. Suddenly, that fragile, traumatized girl my father and Laura had been bending over backwards to protect was not so innocent. The school caught wind of it, and it did not take long before Emma completely shut down. She refused to go back to school and started demanding a transfer. Laura, of course, immediately gave in and started looking into other schools, and my father, he's finally learning how to actually parent a child. Too bad he never did that for me. Now, instead of bothering me, they've been too busy handling the disaster that is Emma's reputation. Laura has been scrambling to fix Emma's image, insisting that she was just a troubled girl who would act out because of trauma, but nobody's buying it. Meanwhile, my father, who never put in the effort to actually be there for me, is now forced to deal with his kid's problem instead of pawning them off to someone else. I'd be lying if I said I didn't find it just a wee bit funny. The same man who told me that I should be grateful for family is now dealing with a daughter who refuses to go to school and throws tantrums when she doesn't get her way. The same man who tried to dump his responsibilities onto me is now forced to handle them himself. Oh, and me, I'm just living my life. I go to class, I work my shifts, hang out with some friends, and go home to a place where no one expects me to play a role I never wanted. My dad and Laura have not reached out since Emma's situation blew up, and I doubt they will anytime soon. Not because they've realized that they were wrong, but because they're too busy dealing with the mess that they've created, and honestly, that's fine with me. I'm done with them, and I don't care how they handle little Emma's situation. I don't care if they finally figure out how to parent properly or if they keep making excuses for her. It's not my problem anymore.